You are listening to the Yoga for Balance podcast, and I'm your host, Heather Jurdy. Thank you so much for listening. Today, I started our show with the ringing of a Tibetan singing bowl. And this is usually what I use when I'm teaching yoga, when I awaken students from Shavasana or I'm doing a Tantra yoga workshop and we're going through the full Tantra yoga series. So I thought I would incorporate it into the show a little bit more. I received great feedback from students that it helps them find their way back to the moment and sometimes can unlock just reactions and a response. So I give you a moment to just kind of see how you're feeling with that. And in a moment, our guest Anna Heffington will guide you through breath work. In this episode, I speak with Anna Heffington, an actress and now yoga teacher. She shares her journey as a student as well as an actress who was living in New York City at the time when the pandemic began and who veered her career in a new direction toward becoming a yoga teacher during this unique time while she had the time to do that training. I think you're really going to appreciate this conversation. Thank you so much, Anna, for being on the show. And please remember to subscribe and leave a star rating wherever you listen so that you can catch any new episodes and more of these wonderful conversations. Namaste. Hi, Anna, and welcome to the Yoga for Balance podcast. Thank you so much for
Hi.
being here.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
I usually have us take a few deep breaths here at the beginning of class. Would you like to guide that?
Absolutely, sure. Let's
Great.
totally do that. All
Okay.
right, so let's just take a big inhale through our nose for 3, 2, 1, and let's just hold it at the top for a moment. And then exhale, let it go out the mouth or out the nose, letting all of that old air out. Beautiful. And let's take another inhale through the nose. Holding at the top for a moment. And then exhale, let it go even deeper. And then one more time for good measure, inhaling through the nose. And holding it at the top for 1, 2, and exhale, let it go. Yay.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I loved it. I just
Absolutely.
find it so nice. I think, especially as a yoga teacher and being yoga students, just before starting these conversations to ground in the breath and to kind of do what we do best, the yoga, before
Absolutely.
talking about the yoga, embodying it. It just feels good.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's amazing.
Well, thank you, Anna. And would you mind just telling everyone a little bit about yourself before we dive into the conversation? Who are you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a stranger on the internet. No, but I'm Anna. I'm actually a professional actor by day, and we'll probably dive into this later in the podcast of how I got to where I am. But now I'm a yoga teacher as well, which is pretty awesome. I'm originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia, and then I was in New York. And then I'm going to actually be heading out to LA in this year. So just kind of all over the place. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
And I'd love you to share what your experience of yoga has been.
Sure. Yeah. So I kind of found yoga along my journey as an actor when I was around 13, 14. I kind of was sort of familiar with the practice of yoga, but I never really experienced like a class or anything. And then I found some videos on YouTube and started kind of watching them and exploring that on my own. And then as I got older, I kind of just started craving like just like the podcast balance and a way for me to just really let go and breathe and like totally relax. And I wasn't sure how to do that. And through yoga, I kind of was able to implement that in my life, which is really helpful because as an actor, there's so many well, as a person in general in the world, there's so much stress and so much chaos around you. And I fell in love with it because it was just a safe space for me on my mat. And from then, I just kind of was practicing yoga throughout my teenage years. In a lot of ways, yoga saved me for a lot of things that I was going through in my teen years, and my even into my early 20s. I say early 20s, but I'm 21, so I don't really know what I'm saying. But um, yeah, and I think I started taking more public classes. I joined some yoga groups in my area, and then I moved to New York after graduating high school. So I was 18 when I moved, and I got really connected with yoga in the city, and I was going every day. And I think always in the back of my mind, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to get certified. But I didn't really have space for that in my life at the time, because of my career in acting and everything. So I just kind of practiced and dove deeper into my own practice before, obviously now I'm certified, but before getting that done. So yeah, it's kind of how I came about yoga, if you will.
New York, very lucky place to be practicing. I can only imagine the experience of teachers you were able to access. And what
Yeah.
styles of yoga were you practicing there?
I pretty much I did a lot of vinyasa, power, hatha. I did some yin a little bit, but I'm horrible at resting. I'm trying to get better at that, but I'm horrible at any sort of like super relaxing yoga. So that wasn't really my cup of tea back then. Although now in retrospect, I can see how it probably would have been good for me. But yeah, it was a super awesome experience. There was so many studios to choose from, so a little overwhelming. But I think I just would go and do a trial class or check it out, and some resonate, some don't. And it was just, yeah, New York in general is just really awesome, and I loved my time there. I was cut too short because of the virus, but definitely, yeah, super cool experience.
And so you mentioned that you had recently completed that yoga teacher training, and since you've been teaching virtually, so have most of the classes that you have taught been virtually, and what has that experience been like? Because I'd imagine initially when you thought of yourself becoming a yoga teacher, you pictured yourself teaching in a studio or in
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. So a little bit of a backstory just to kind of give the listeners an idea of what happened, because I'm an actor and I'm speaking of my acting life, and yet here I am as a yoga teacher running this business. What happened was, coronavirus hit us all, and I had work as an actor lined up in New York. I'd been there for a year, about a year and a half, and I had just gotten off of a 6 month long tour of a musical that I was doing, and it was like on a high of life, and I was so excited to like book more work and continue working. And then the virus hit, and I was just like, oh shit, like my entire career was just completely obliviated essentially. So we all thought it would last not that long, right? None of us thought it would be going on now a year plus. So I kind of was like, okay, it's fine, like a little bit of a break for me. Like I can kind of relax and catch up on sleep from my tour, and then hop back into the acting world, when this virus is over. And then as things started to um, get worse and worse, it kind of became clear that the universe was handing me this space and time to do something with. And it was almost like a moment in your life where you're like, okay, I have a choice. I can either sit around and wait for my career path to open back up, or I can do something with this time. I can create, I can, start a business, I can dive into myself deeper. And I think just like a lot of us recognized with this whole pandemic, like that was a decision many of us had to make. And I realized that I kind of silenced this part of myself that wanted to be a yoga teacher. I kind of been like, oh, like in another life, because I'm an actor, and very, very heavily identified with this idea that I was just an actor. Um, so with all this space, I was like, man, like I have time now to really dive into other things I'm interested in. So I kind of started looking around for yoga teacher trainings, just having no idea what I was even getting myself into. And it just so happened that a teacher I had been connected with back in my hometown before I moved to New York was starting a yoga teacher training online. Yoga Alliance had just approved this online, training. And so she kind of was just about to start it. And when I reached out to her, I had asked her for suggestions, and she was like, "Oh, I'm actually starting my own training through my business." And I was like, "Oh, this is literally another sign from the universe that, this is kind of what I'm supposed to do." And, whenever you have those decisions you're going to make and you just keep getting these confirmations, just like if you can open your mind to them, you will see all the little signs of like, this is where you're supposed to be. This is what you're supposed to be doing. So that really just worked itself out really well. So I got my certification over this past summer in 2020, and completed that. And yeah, in my mind, I definitely thought I would be teaching in-person classes, or at least, one in-person class. Even in my teacher training, it was all virtual. I had a few finals where I taught some public classes, but even my training was all online, which was a super interesting experience. But yeah, my business, to be honest with you, I didn't ever think I would own my own business. I never intended to have a yoga teaching business. I never intended to start this brand. I truly just kind of went along with the flow of life. I got my certification. I finished it up in the fall 2020, and I actually went to a trip to Hawaii to kind of, with my boyfriend, to just kind of like just let go of life and just kind of explore. And we'd been under a lot of pressure the past year, so we kind of took that trip. And on the trip, I just realized, I was like, I don't know why I'm not starting a business. Like, I had done a couple like public classes before I had left, and I had a really great response. A lot of people showed up, and a lot of my friends were interested, and a lot of my, all people on social media were super interested in taking class. I was like, why am I just not giving into this? And so from then, I just kind of launched Flow with Anna and started teaching public classes. And the virtual journey is kind of come easier to me than I expected, just because I think I never had the experience of teaching in person. So teaching online just was like, oh yeah, I did my training online, I'm teaching online. It's all kind of, the same. And I'm now auditioning online. It's all kind of just, everything's online via Zoom. I swear I should have, gotten stock in Zoom before this pandemic hit, because I would be literally rolling. But yeah, that's kind of my journey with virtual teaching. I would say there's a lot to it that can be frustrating, not being able to be with students, not being able to, adjust them. A lot of times, students turn their cameras off. They don't really feel that connection on a screen, and which I understand, but it can be a very, I think, lonely and isolating situation. But I'm very grateful to be able to teach, and I'm very grateful too, because people's schedules are way more flux. So they're more likely to be able to make a 9:30 a.m. class, even if they do work from home, because they're able to, you know, make the time, since they're on their own schedule. So pros and cons for sure, but mostly just I'm very grateful for the opportunity to teach anywhere at this point. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your journey. And yes, it's definitely an interesting time. But like you said, the door opened and there was opportunity, and absolutely going with the flow and trusting your intuition. It's like the things add up when you allow them to, and you just flow with it. So it's beautiful to see that in action with the great work that you're doing online. And so I'd love for you to share just kind of, what it is exactly. How are you delivering the classes to your students? And do you have any tips for teachers that, maybe on the other side are super comfortable teaching in person, but they're, not sure about the technology side or taking that step to reach their students?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think some things that I've learned, or tips, if you will, for those who are unsure. Maybe you're, used to having taught in person, and now you're having to decide if you're going to make the shift to virtual teaching. Just trust yourself. Like, I spend half of my time just reaching out to people on social media and being like, hey, you want to join my class? Like, I think a lot of it is just spreading the word, and not being afraid to spread the word. Like, yeah, you're promoting yourself. Yeah, you're self-promoting, but also you're growing a business, and you're just asking if someone wants to join your class. And if they say no, they say no. If they say yes, they want more information, have that ready, send that along to them. I run all my classes via Zoom right now, and I use a booking site called bookwhen.com, which is just a very affordable, pretty hands-free booking site. I'm working right now on a monthly subscriber database that I'll have up and running in a couple weeks, which will be even more hands-off for me. My goal with this is just to kind of get everything outsourced as quickly as possible. So that basically all I'm going to have to be doing is teaching the class, which I love. But I think with Zoom, record all of your classes. You can just record to the cloud. And that just what I do is I record all my classes and then I post them on a YouTube channel that's private. And whenever someone misses a class and they've paid for a class, I send them the recorded class. That way they're not, losing out on any money. And I have a 24-hour cancellation policy. So, if they do cancel the class 24 hours or less than 24 hours before, I don't want them to, have a bad taste in their mouth because I have this policy. So I keep those classes so I can, send it to them and be like, hey, sorry, you couldn't make class. Here's, it's not the same, but here's a recorded version. And I hope you'll join again. So yeah, record your classes. I think really people think you need to have like all this great equipment and stuff to be able to do virtual. Really, all you need is like a wall, a background, your mat. And I have like a little tripod from Amazon, really easy, and my phone. And that's literally all I need for these classes. And I think just not overthinking it too much. Also, I don't know like what kind of a yoga teacher you are, Heather, but I'm the kind of teacher that like I just wake up and start flowing. Like I don't really plan my classes out too much. Maybe I'll have a few like peak poses that I want to incorporate in the class, but for the most part, I just kind of go with what my body's feeling, or I like will ask the class, beforehand, hey, like anybody have a body part they're feeling needs some extra love, like anything you guys want to work on. And I think the hardest thing I've run into is just like I said before, class interaction. It's virtual, so there's like this barrier of just like everyone's cameras are off, everyone's muted, and it's just like these blank squares. And I want to get to know my students, and especially if they're strangers from the internet who have like taken a chance to take my class and taken a chance on flowing with me. I want to make sure they feel welcomed and and safe and invited in my space of class. So I found that just kind of like before beginning your flow, just taking a moment like we did here, like kind of breathing together, and then maybe like saying, hey, can everyone like turn their cameras on for a second and just say hi. And again, that's where I would invite any sort of, you know, something they wanted to incorporate in the flow, invite people to share with me, oh, I would love to work on some hip openers or like heart openers or whatever it might be. So yeah, those are just some tips I found helpful. It's definitely a trial and error learning process, and still is for me. There's still a lot of things I'm learning how to navigate. Um, but yeah, of
Thank you for sharing those. Really appreciate that. I
course.
I think this is a space a lot of people are trying to navigate. So I think people listening at home will definitely find that helpful. And there's so much we all can be doing and should be doing. And when, you brought up the kind of teaching you do, it's sometimes I ebb and flow. Sometimes it's I plan my classes out for 7 weeks and we're doing a chakra series. But then the Aries in me revolts against that and says, no, I don't want it to be planned. And I want to go with the intuition. And I think your point to being with the option to be on camera. Hey, if you're okay with it, come on, put your cameras on. We'll all just say hi for a
Hmm.
second, to really foster this idea of community and the studio experience that we all wish we could be having a little
Yeah,
more, than we have been able to. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
totally. Yeah, of course, of course.
What is a 10-minute tip that anyone listening can do today for a little more balance?
That's a great one. I love that question. 10-minute tip. Um, I'm a huge advocate for meditation. And if you're listening and you're like, oh, meditation, it's just not for me, or even yoga is not for me, just meditation doesn't have to be sitting still, cross-legged, with a mudra with your hands, like meditation can be moving. It can be going for a walk outside and really just focusing on your breath, or, lighting a candle. I love candle meditation where you just light a candle and you just stare at the flame and you kind of have this, like, there's so many ways you can meditate. And for me, every single day has to start with some sort of meditation. And I like to check in, for the first five minutes I wake up. First thing I do, I sit up and I just kind of say, like, what does Anna need today? Like, what do I need? Because some days I just wake up very, very anxious. Some days I wake up like really, really like ready to go, ready to get it. Or some days I wake up, it depends on the day. Every day is different for us as humans. And I think it's important to just take, 5 minutes, check in with yourself. What do you need? And then maybe the next 5 minutes you meditate, or you dance around your room, or just some sort of, just a little self-care, I guess, mental self-care, emotional self-care. I don't know. That's my 10-minute tip. I think that's, no day can truly start for me until I've done that. So yeah, that's my tip.
I love that. Mornings are definitely my favorite time to meditate, and I find it's the easiest way to incorporate it into the day and know that, okay, I started out with that centering. So here we go. I'm ready for you,
Definitely.
day.
Yeah, come at me.
Yes. Well, is there anything else you would like to add to for anyone listening who's on their yoga journey seeking a little more mind, body, spirit union and bliss and
Yeah,
navigating this day and age?
definitely. Yeah. I would say it's okay if you're a student of yoga and you're not a teacher or anything. It's okay if you, like, I think a lot of times, and even I thought this when I was practicing yoga before I became a teacher, was just that I had to have a specific environment in order to practice yoga. Like, I had to have my yoga mat, or I had to, have the perfect setting, or like it had to be the right time of day. But yoga doesn't have to be, uh, you don't need to box it in. Like, you can sit in bed and do some yoga. Like, you can, you know, take a work break for 10 minutes and just stretch it out. Like, it doesn't always have to be this hour long flow. So if you're finding it hard to make time for yoga every day, and maybe that's a goal that you went into 2021 with, was just like, I want to try to get on my mat every day. I encourage you to just like be easy with yourself. Like, obviously challenge yourself, but also recognize that, like, this is a really weird time in all of our world, in all of our lives. Like, this is crazy. Like, nothing like this has ever happened in our lifetimes for most of us. So if you're finding it hard to show up to your mat every day, maybe just take a little bit of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just dedicate it to your practice, and know that doesn't need to be perfect. And another thing I would say is, coming from someone who is a chronic hustler, I found, and I just posted an IGTV about this on my business page, just me talking about how one of the biggest things I'm learning right now is to not identify with one particular thing. So I shared previously, I very much identified with being an actor, and that being like my thing. And whenever I introduced myself, it was like, I'm Anna the actor. And it was never Anna, I'm an actor and blah, 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 blah. It was just, I'm Anna and I'm an actor. And I realized, like, there's so much freedom in exploring every other part of who I am. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you need to step away from something, be it yoga, be it, singing, be it whatever it might be, if you find yourself just identifying just too much with it, it's okay. Like, you're allowed to step back from something that you really, really, really love in order to explore other parts of you. Um, I think that's the biggest thing I've learned in this entire pandemic year and a few months. Like, just this idea that I don't have to be one thing. I can give myself the freedom to explore other parts of what makes me me, and to not feel guilty for stepping away from acting for a little bit, in order to explore this. And um, yeah, I just feel like very passionate about that right now, because it's a huge thing I'm learning. And last thing is, purchase yourself a copy of the Yamas and Niyamas, even if you're not spiritual, even if you are spiritual but you're not into like Buddhism or whatever. Like, just read it. It's really not. It's really more than spirituality. It's such a great book, and I am rereading it right now with my partner. I read it during my teacher training, and I'm reading it again. And every single time I read it through it, I learn something new. So purchase yourself a copy. It's really cheap online, and thank me later. Your life will improve.
Who is the author of that one?
Ooh, the Yamas and the Yamas. I think it is. Hang on, let me see. Diane, or man, I really don't remember, to be honest. It's the Yamas and Yamas Exploring Yoga, Deborah Del. Yes.
Yeah, I'll be sure to link
Yes,
that up in the show notes. So you can visit my website, vintantra.com, and go to the podcast page. And I'll have a show page for our conversation, Anna, today. And I'll include any of your links, including a link to that book. So I'd love for you to share where people can find you if they want to connect with you after listening to this episode.
absolutely. I would love some new virtual friends. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. My page for yoga is flow.with.anna. Um, and that's Instagram. And then I also have a personal page. It's just Anna Heffington, my full name, all one word. And I'm also on Facebook, but I don't really use Facebook much. And then my website is about to launch, and it'll just be flowwithanna.com. And that's where you can book a class. Currently, for booking classes, you can go to my Instagram bio and click that link, and it'll take you to the booking site, and you can see all that info there. But I'm pretty much just an Instagram girl. That's where I reside mostly.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Anna. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to be here and then just for taking the time to continue exploring this path and stepping boldly into the world of virtual yoga. And I can't wait to see where your yoga teaching career blossoms from here. So thank you.
Of course, that's so sweet of you. Thank you so much for having me and for being open to hearing my story. Yeah, I really appreciate it. This is a blast.
Namaste, Anna. Thank you.
Namaste, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. And thank you again to Anna for being on the Yoga for Balance podcast. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't already, wherever you listen, so that you can hear new conversations when they come out. And leave a star rating to help our show grow while you're there. I appreciate your feedback and your comments. Your support and being here listening means the universe to me. So thank you so much. And until next time.